ancient texts are written without word division. There are no spaces between the words. They are an illiterate society to a very large extent, and that means that a lot of language learning does not involve written materials at all.
Bilingual texts, the dialogues that we talked about them in our first discussion. I'm still at a loss for even really piecing together what the structure of language learning and how it was done, and really, and what is a student immediately looking to do with this text.
Yeah. Okay, let me take a step back and address the incredibly illiterate society first, because I only have access to stuff that gets written down. They are an illiterate society to a very large extent, and that means that a lot of language learning does not involve written materials at all. And to that language learning, I have no access. I just do not know what those people are doing. They are not, by definition, using the materials that we have. So there is this kind of huge unknown area that I'm sure happened. I am absolutely positive that there were loads of people who did learn foreign languages without any writing. But I'm not even going to speculate about exactly what they did, because by definition, I have nothing. Thinking now about the people who do have literacy, they fall into two categories when it comes to learning a foreign language. So if we look at the bilingual dialogues, what are people doing with those? These are people who are literate to begin with, and who have committed, on the whole, to learning the script as well as the language that they're learning. And when you're trying to learn to read a foreign language in the ancient world, you have a terrible problem that we do not have today, which is that ancient texts are written without word division. There are no spaces between the words. And that makes it just impossible for a learner to tackle a genuine piece of writing in the other language. Because, with me, if I'm reading something in a language I don't know, I see a word that I don't know, and I can use various tools to look that word up and find out what it means. But if there are no word divisions, I don't know where the words begin and end. I can't isolate the thing I don't know and try to find it. So what you have to do as a language learner is learn vocab, until you have enough vocab that you can actually divide those words up yourself. And therefore, the dialogues are mainly to help people learn a lot of vocab so that they can then be turned loose on a real text. And the way they work is that they are in two narrow columns. So you have, suppose you're a Greek speaker learning Latin, you have a Latin column on the left, and each line is one or maybe two or at most 3 words long. And then you have a Greek column on the right, which is an exact line for line equivalent. And these things are bilingually composed. So they write them so that this works. Each column, you can read it from top to bottom. It makes sense. It makes grammar. But you can read it across, and it's a dialogue, and it's a glossary. So you could cover up the right-hand column, the one in the language you already know. And you could read down the left-hand column. And anytime you get stuck, you know exactly which line to uncover to get a translation of exactly what you have not understood. And it gives you, because the lines are so short, it gives you most of the word divisions. And the lines are meaningful units. So, like, for example, Greek has the definite article, it has a word for the, and Latin doesn't. So if you have horse in the Latin column, you're going to have maybe the horse in the Greek column. And the will be written on the same line as the horse, so that the learner can see that the goes with the horse. And you have the big horse, those are also going to be written all on the same line, so the learner can see that big goes with horse. So it's really kind of useful that way, but it's also useful because they're targeting vocabulary that you need for everyday interaction. So the Romans, they learn Greek in school, and so they have these dialogues about a child going to school and learning Greek. And they talk through everything he does from when he gets up in the morning. I'm afraid it always is a he, but we know that the dialogues were intended to be used by girls as well as boys because they specifically say so. But the main character is a boy. He gets up in the morning, he gets dressed, He goes to school, everything he does in the school day, and then he goes home to eat. And you sometimes get what he eats and kind of how he does it. So you get all of the words and all of the forms that you actually need to interact with people and talk about your day in school so that you can do it that way. Now, the Greek speakers who are learning Latin, they don't do it as children in school. They do it a bit later. And so they have dialogues about adults. And so you have, for example, somebody goes to visit a sick friend. How does that work? Somebody goes to court. Somebody borrows money. Somebody repays the money. Somebody goes shopping for clothes. Somebody goes shopping for food. Somebody goes to the Roman baths. Somebody has a dinner party. Those are the kind of vocabulary things that you are learning. It is very clearly the vocab, the basic sort of core vocab that you need to function in the other language.